Good day, friends. We had in Namibia a bunch of hearings about liberalizing the legislation surrounding abortion. And I was at the constituency for Windhoek East and West and had a speech prepared. And I just wanted to give you that speech. I think it's got a very good information for anyone that wants to talk about abortion. So there are about 10 to 15 standard arguments that pro-abortionists usually make, and I just want to highlight the main ones and then also refute the claims about that. So in the first case, we asked the question, what about in the case of rape? Now, our legislation already allows for abortion in the case of rape and incest, and also if the life of the mother is in jeopardy. So this is actually not a valid argument for Namibia, which leads me to conclude that what the petition that wanted to liberalize abortion actually wants is the right to promiscuity without consequences. In all countries that have legalized abortion on demand, abortion because of rape make up about, and also incest and the life of the mother make up about 2 to 4% of abortions. The vast majority of abortions are a matter of convenience, generally speaking. Now, also just a question on this topic. Why do pro-abortionists believe rape is wrong? Because you believe it's wrong to force your will onto the body or life of another person without their consent. The mantra, my body, my choice, right? Now, isn't that exactly the same thing we do to babies when we abort them? We force our wills onto their bodies and onto their lives, the body and life of another person without their consent. Also, the sad thing about abortion, even in the case of rape, is that we punish the children for the sins of their fathers. And that's not a good practice in terms of law. What you decry in the case of rape is the very thing you are advocating for in abortion. This is how we answer this question. Now, the second one is, what about in the case of incest? The possibility for deformity and disability. And my question is, should we then start killing disabled people? Should we abort all babies that have a likelihood of being born deformed and disabled? And then also, if we say, yes, because some babies will be deformed and have a disability, then I will ask, well, what metric will you use? How deformed or how disabled should a baby be before we decide that they should be aborted? This is a very dangerous and a very slippery slope to go down. What about in the case of the life of the mother, if the life of the mother is in jeopardy? Now, because of medical advancement, many doctors have testified before their respective legislature that the life of the mother being endangered to the degree that necessitates abortion is an extremely rare occurrence in this day and age. And there's also a double standard here. When you bring up the life of the mother, you do so because, I hope, you believe that human life is valuable. It needs to be protected. Wouldn't that standard, if you want to be consistent, prompt you to advocate for the life of the unborn as well? That all life is valuable. And in a very, very rare occurrence that the mother's life is truly in danger, we no longer talk about abortion. What we do talk about is a rescue operation. As in the case where a car with 2 people in it is about to go over a cliff and you only have time to save one. That's the principle. My body, my choice. The mantra of the pro-abortion camp. Now, what this actually is an argument for bodily autonomy. And this is actually the best pro-life argument that anyone can make. Because if you believe that all human beings have the right to bodily autonomy, then what is in the womb also have the right to bodily autonomy. You cannot absolutize yourself and say, I have bodily autonomy, but you don't. Hitler said that. Slave owners said that. Pol Pot, Stalin, Mao, all of these dictators, they all absolutized themselves, their class, their race, their political party at the expense of others. I can do with you as I please. So either we have bodily autonomy for all or for none. Otherwise, we are going down the road of history's biggest and baddest dictators. What about quality of life? And then also that's always followed up with you only care about babies up until the moment of birth. The same argument. Now, in short, what you can say to this is, I don't think we should kill poor kids. Easy answer. Now, let's draw this answer out to its logical conclusion by asking, when should we stop killing poor kids? Let's say things are going well for the family, up until the kids are 5 years old. And then things start to go bad. Should we then say, well, the quality of life of this kid isn't good anymore, so we should execute them? No, we won't do that to a 5-year-old. So why would we do that to the unborn? Quality of life is not a good argument for killing babies. Don't like abortion, don't have one. Again, slave owners said the same thing. If you don't like slavery, don't own a slave. This is not a good moral point to make, because it opens up the floodgates for all kinds of moral depravity. It's just a clump of cells. It's just a fetus. It's not a person. Immediately what you can say is, well, you are also just a clump of cells. You are just a bigger clump of cells, but you are nothing but a clump of cells, if that is your worldview. The word fetus is also used as a euphemism here, to devalue the life in the womb. And it's the same as in the movie The Prince of Egypt, when Moses found out about the genocide of Jewish babies by his father, the Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh then tells him, they were only slaves. It's only a fetus. It's not a person. Dehumanizing is also what the great dictators in history did to acquit themselves of killing millions of people. Also, the definition of a fetus, the Latin word fetus, is an offspring of a human or other mammal in the stage of prenatal development. In other words, it's a baby. Fetus is just a euphemism or a way to dehumanize what's in the womb. But the translation is, it's a baby. Abortion doesn't kill a fetus, it kills a baby. We Christians can also ask the question with this objection. So if a certain level of development is required for a human being to be considered a person, is that also the case for someone to be considered made in the image of God? Does that also come at a later stage, or is that something that happens at conception? The other great argument you can use in this case is the SLED argument, the acronym SLED, S-L-E-D. Size, level of development, environment, and degree of dependency. I've got a 4-year-old boy. If you let us two stand next to each other, there's a difference in size. I'm much bigger than him. But does that make my life more valuable than his? Now put an unborn again next to my boy, and we ask the same question. There's different levels of development, but does that make the life that's more developed more valuable than those that are not? Secondly, size. Same argument with level of development. Is my life more valuable because I'm more cognitively and bodily developed than my boy or than an unborn? Environment. Do I have more value because I'm in the outside world and a fetus is inside the womb? Do I have more value because of my environment? Put someone in a desert and put me in a lush green forest. Do my life have more value because I'm in a forest and the other person is in a desert? And then the last one, degree of dependency. If I leave my boy alone on the street, he will die. He's completely dependent on me and my wife. If you leave me alone on the street, I'll make it, I think. But does that make my life more valuable because I am more or less free from being dependent on other people? And then my boy less valuable because he's dependent on other people. So you can make this argument all the way from unborns to elderly people. Size, level of development, environment, and degree of dependency. Next argument. Only women can talk about abortion. Or if you don't have a uterus, you don't have an opinion. Now, let's put this reasoning to the test by going back to slavery. With this argument, it would have been permissible for plantation owners to say, If you don't have a plantation, you don't have an opinion on slavery, because you don't know my plight. You don't know what I have to go through. You don't know what I have to do to operate this whole undertaking. Or for Hitler to say, if you're not a German, you don't have an opinion on the extermination of the Jews. No. There's something that is a universal moral discussion and not relegated to certain peoples that meet certain standards or criteria. No one can use my body without permission. Now, this is interesting. What about most countries have what we call Good Samaritan laws that says that no one has the right to allow another person to suffer? Say you get to an accident. If you can do something to help the other person that was in a car accident, say, you are required by law, by these Good Samaritan laws, to do something, even to drag people out of a wreck without their consent. Maybe they are unconscious. And then you are protected by the law if, say, the person had a broken rib or a broken neck, and because you dragged them out, there were complications. Because you are required to do something, even if it's without consent of the other person, if you can help them. Also, dependency is a stage we go in and out of our entire lives. If every time someone wants to help us, they first need our consent, a lot of us will die while unconscious on the floor and in need of medical attention. And this is also the dependence argument. Can a mother that executes her 2 or 3 or 5-year-old use this in court? No one has the right to my care without my consent. That won't be an argument. She will immediately go to jail. Now, there are a bunch of other similar arguments, but all with the same inconsistencies and absolute moral reprehensibility once you draw them out to their logical conclusions. Because the different arguments for abortion has been so thoroughly refuted throughout the years, I'd like to take a step back from just arguing the points of pro-life versus pro-abortion to help us get behind what this debate is really about. And especially what we as Namibians have to look forward to if ever this legislation gets passed. There are well-meaning and caring people in our country today, and I think in a lot of countries, that say, I don't want to talk about politics because it only sows division and animosity. Well, I applaud the sentiment. This is absolutely not a stance that can be defended anymore in this day and age. Why? Because every single facet of life, society and culture, anything you can have an opinion about, has been politicized. Sports, education, healthcare, religion, entertainment, social media, fashion, relationships, science and technology, parenthood, and the reason for these hearings in Namibia, human life. All of this has become political talking points with the explicit goal of sowing division and animosity for political gain and political agendas. So if you really don't want to talk about politics in this day and age, you should not be talking at all because you can't avoid it. I spoke out about abortion at this hearing as a Christian pastor of a congregation. And a lot of my colleagues even will say, politics are no place for a pastor. And I promise you, I would have loved nothing more than not having a reason to attend these hearings about the liberalization of our abortion laws. But I'm afraid that what they don't realize is, in not engaging the political topics of our day, they are allowing, and this is the point I'm going to make, they're allowing a false religion to infect the very fabric of our society and eventually also our spirituality, how we listen to and relate to God. And this is the false religion of secular progressivism, or in the popular vernacular, wokeism, which can also be called intersectionalism or social justice ideology. And the central tenet of secular progressivism is the deconstruction of all traditional systems and structures, both secular and sacred. And I would argue that destruction is probably a more accurate description of how this plays out in reality than deconstruction. But deconstruction is the primary goal of this ideology, not based on the merit of these systems and structures, but based on the ideological doctrine that all systems and all structures are expressions of unequal power dynamics, and as such they are morally reprehensible. The argument of secular progressivism goes, any system or structure that keeps you from pleasure and self-gratification was put there by someone else that wanted power over you. And therefore, anything that keeps you from being and doing what you want to be and what you want to do has to be torn down. This principle also holds for anything that imposes a responsibility or an accountability on you from outside of your explicit consent. Like saying that you can't have an abortion just because you were promiscuous. These are the real reasons we had the hearings about the liberalization of our abortion laws, regardless of any other arguments. The first one, the deconstruction of moral and ethical boundaries that has kept societies from barbarism and absolute anarchy for hundreds of years, all based on the religious ideology of secular progressivism. And secondly, the appeal to the so-called lived experience, that no one or no thing may dictate to me how I should be and what I should do, because I have the moral right to live my truth however I see fit. And by extension, even if it hurts other people. Now, with that in mind, here's my preliminary warning. The great G.K. Chesterton once said that there exists, in such a case, a certain institutional law. Let us say, for the sake of simplicity, a fence or a gate erected across a road. The more modern type of reformer goes gaily up to it and says, I don't see the use of this. Let us clear it away. To which the more intelligent type of reformer will do well to answer, well, if you don't see the use of it, I certainly won't let you clear it away. Go away and think. Then when you come back and tell me that you do see the use of it, I may allow you to destroy it. The principle being, before you tear down a fence, first ask why it was put there. As a Christian, I believe that God is the absolute moral and final authority, and that He and He alone may dictate morality. And even if you don't believe in God, there must be some kind of transcendent moral reality that does not change with popular opinion. Otherwise, morality will always be decided with by the person with the biggest stick or with the most support. And that is actually where I think secular progressivism wants to lead us, to the denial of the existence of objective truth and thus, in the end, objective morality. The denial that right and wrong exist apart from democratic consensus. Now, if post-Enlightenment history has shown us anything, it has shown us the unbridled evil humans are capable of when tearing down the moral fences God has put in place. From the evils of the global slave trade in the 1700s to 1800s, to state-sponsored genocide of 6 million Jews in Nazi Germany, to the dehumanizing rhetoric and policies of the apartheid ideology, to the societal destructiveness of secular progressivism. When moral and ethical watchfulness gets substituted with political pandering for the purpose of political gain, only destruction can follow. Case in point, everything going on in America, in Europe, and especially our very woke neighbors in South Africa at the moment. Dear friends, we cannot allow our country to even dip its toe in these muddied waters, much less to happily go down the road of secular progressivism. Because international activist groups want to virtue signal that they were able to indoctrinate Namibians with woke propaganda, that they were able to get us to join the cause that is currently obliterating their societies. I promise you, once we as Namibians start going down this road, it won't stop at what we had just a while ago, the petitions for gay marriage, and now the petitions for abortion. Because wokeness can never go too far. The essence of wokeness is that it must keep on progressing, keep on finding new ways to mutate. In conclusion, I would like to end off with a quote from Peter Kreeft. He's a Catholic philosopher. He said that abortion is the demonic parody of the Eucharist. That is why it uses the same holy words. This is my body, but with the opposite blasphemous meaning. God bless you.